All right, let me just let somebody confirm that they see us. No laughing, Dr. Brown. These are just the steps that I have to take.
Everyone expect me to hold them accountable for their technology issues. I love it. I see you over there, Fee. Don't be laughing.
Who was the Etch-a-Sketch?
He didn't. Did my father say something about an Etch-a-Sketch?
Yeah, that brother was using an Etch-a-Sketch when I first met him. I had to let him know. We got to do something about that. You can't be hanging with me.
You said you have to put that down, right?
All right, let me just go to the event because someone said they don't see us yet. Oh, it says almost there. Oh, I see us. I see us as having been live for a good minute now. All right. Let me just confirm. Welcome, Dr. E.B. All right. Hold on a minute. I'm going to show you all us. You see us? Okay, it's working. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, beautiful. Excellent. Hello, hello, everyone. Greetings, greetings, and thank you so much for accepting this invitation to gather. Hold on, let's make sure we start with. Yes, so welcome, welcome everybody. Indeed, thank you. I'm welcoming you, those of you who are in this conversation. And I know we have an audience out there, so thank you all for tuning in. But ultimately, I'm emphasizing that this is such a critical and important opportunity for us to come together and engage in a conversation. So welcome to the Southside Community Center Black Town Hall meeting. And I am pleased to also introduce my co-host for the evening and time period, and that is a fellow board member of Southside Community Center, Mr. Amos Malone. So Amos, say hello. Hi there, Amos.
Hello to everyone. We're just happy and we're excited. This particular town hall meeting, in the middle of this pandemic, we just say thank you for taking the time out of you all's busy schedule and all of your Zoom meetings that you've been on. Hopefully this one will be just a tad bit more relaxed. And thank you again. And I'm just looking forward to all the possibilities of learning something brand new today from you all. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. And right before we go around and acknowledge and honor each and every one of you, I wonder if I might invite you to just do a little breathing, a little taking a moment for us to honor this opportunity for us to come together. But if you're willing to close your eyes for a moment. And to just take a moment to be engaged, I'm sure, in Zoom calls and things of that nature throughout the week. But it's Friday, and I know that we are truly grateful that you have allocated some time for us to be here. So just continue to inhale and exhale. And you may choose to completely tune me out, and that is just fine. But if you're willing, go ahead and just massage your eyeballs for a moment and just keeping your head still and your eyes closed, but lifting your eyeballs up to the ceiling, giving a good stretch, and then bring them down to the floor. Eyes closed, head still, and honoring your breath. Go ahead and take those eyeballs and bring them over to the right and look to the left, and slowly begin to make circles with your eyeballs in one direction. Your head is still, your eyelids are closed. Go the opposite direction. Invitation to engage in a little bit of a stretch if you would like, and to open our eyes and connect with one another. Indeed. Thank you. Yes, I am my father's child, my mother's child, and beginning with a little breathing is a critical part of my Black joy. And so I'd love to go around and pass the mic and give you, I'll start with you, Mom and Dad, you go ahead and introduce yourselves. Well, everybody knows you here, but just introduce yourselves and then share what Black joy means to you.
There are other people out there too, right, who might not know us. So good afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm Shelly Michelle Nunn.
And I'm Fee Nunn.
And what Black joy means to me is when I can see my people thriving. That's Black joy for me.
And Black joy for me is to see us continue to survive as we have throughout history, and as I know we will moving forward.
Thank you. Go
By
ahead.
the way, Nia, I just got a text. Someone said they're not able to see this on Facebook. Are we on Facebook?
Tell them when they go to the event to click under discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
And you said that folks may not know who you are. So say who you are again.
Who I am? I'm
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I am also the Director of Human Resources, a mother of several children, and a grandmother of more.
I'm Fee Nunn, the community uncle. Professionally, I am assistant to the principal for family student engagement at Ithaca High School in the wonderful Ithaca City School District.
Thank you both for crafting out some time this evening.
Did we have a choice? No.
Dr. Nia's parents.
Miss Maynard, Millicent Clark Maynard, please.
Well, good afternoon or good evening to everybody. For those of you who don't know me and for those of you who do know me, I'm a retired educator. And I'm proud to say retired because it's a good feeling at this particular time. I've been retired almost 8 years now. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a consultant group called Teacher on the Go. It's a philanthropy organization and group where I make the money and then I give the money away to the charities of my choice that I'm very passionate about, and that's education. I am a community mom, a grandmother, a great grandmother, an aunt, and a go-to person.
Thank you, Mrs. Maynard. Thank you so much.
Oh, Black Joy. What does that mean?
Yes, please, no, please. What does
Well,
Black Joy mean to you?
Black Joy means to me knowing that I'm a spiritual blessing. I receive spiritual blessings from my ancestors and that they watch over me. I have guardian angels that pray over me and watch over me. That is that's what Black Joy means to me. I have a family, a biological family, and I also have an extended community family who got my back. And also, I'm a strong believer in doing for self and others. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Maynard. Welcome, Mrs. Denise Lee. I know that you just arrived. My parents shared, Ms. Maynard shared, but I'm actually going to pass the mic to you briefly to introduce who you are,
Okay.
right? And what Black Joy means to you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. A pleasure to see you all. I'm really happy to be here. This has been a really busy week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you name it. I'm not whining. I'm just saying that I am blessed because I'm here right now with you all, for sure. Yes, I am whining. I am. But my name is Denise Lee, and I'm excited to be here because, oh my gosh, there's so much to say, but I'll try to not say so very much. I'm a retired teacher, but really not. I still teach. I'm teaching second grade at Beverly J. Martin School presently, and I love it. It is a virtual class. My husband and I, Abe Lee, a teacher in the history department, retired, but went back to work and has worked for many years there. And most recently with Mr. Fee Nunn, they have a wonderful relationship. So he has another commitment and couldn't join us today. But we've been here since 1969. We're from Brooklyn, and we came to be students at Cornell University. We have four wonderful children, 2 who went to Cornell, 1 who went to Ithaca College, and 1 who went to Howard University. And again, we are totally blessed. We are also the directors of a Saturday Science and Mathematics Academy, a STEM program, the oldest, I'm just gonna put it out there, the oldest community-based STEM program in Ithaca that serves Black and Brown students and others. We don't turn anyone away, elementary school through high school. And right now, due to COVID, things are a little on the low side, quiet that is, but we're ready to rock and roll as soon as things work their way out due to COVID. Again, I'm happy to be here. I know I'm leaving things out, but I don't want to go overboard.
And just maybe it's just a couple words that
Yes,
describe
about
what Black
joy.
Joy. Yeah, just a couple words about Black
Well,
Joy.
Black Joy, I'm again really blessed, you know. Millie, who just shared, called me and raced and said, Denise, do you know that Cecily Tyson passed away? And I said, get out of here, no. She said, yes. I said, no. Well, guess what? I am just so saddened by that, but I want you to know that I feel blessed again. Cecily Tyson is my cousin. And we are close in that I don't see her every day. Get a life, Denise, I do not. But if she came to Ithaca, when she has come to Ithaca, years past, we had dinner, this, that, and the third. Abe and I, she's on my mom's side. Yes, we're from Nevis, St. Kitts, West Indies, you name it, whatever you hear and see that's written about her, I could kind of say, yes, thumbs up, because I know that. I'm only saying that I'm blessed because we came from meager backgrounds, and our ancestors, my grandparents, came over on the ship called the Corona from Bastille, St. Kitts, over to Ellis Island and to this country. My mom was born here, but two uncles were born over in the West Indies. So we're second generation to this country. And I wrote a big, long thing because I wanted my family to know we have a WhatsApp chat for the family. And I wanted them to know that we are blessed to have had Miss Cecily Tyson in our lives for 96 years. And we're good.
Yes.
I can't say anything other than I feel joy for being alive, for being here today with you all. And we're celebrating all of our lives and the elders. So thanks so much for just listening, and I'm going to stop.
Oh, good. Always. Thank you, Miss Lee. I will just say briefly after introducing particularly you all who just went, I want to make the connection to our elders who were advertised as part of this event, right? Auntie Bev, Miss Beverly J. Martin, and Miss Jacqueline Elizabeth Melton Scott. I'm going like this because I'm wearing Bev Martin, y'all see, right? And that, you know, as we think about Black joy, the honesty and directness, and Bev Martin went in her mentoring. I always say she handpicked the Black teachers for us. And so I was one who was fortunate enough to have Miss Lee, Denise Lee, as my first grade teacher, and Miss Maynard as my second grade teacher here in the Ithaca City School District. So thank you all for being here for sure. And yes, let's go ahead and pass the mic. All right, I'm gonna pass the mic down to my sister, Miss Samantha Little. Sorry, I might be over there for you or whatever, but you right here. Welcome, thank you, because I know you are a busy girl and nice and full, just like myself, but I honor your time and thank you for taking the time to be here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Nia. And I just, you know, you're probably the youngest one on this call, and you are leading this work in such a powerful way. So I just want to thank you for your continued efforts to provide Black joy for me. This in itself is Black joy. I'll take a moment to step back and just say, my name's Samantha Little, and I've been blessed to live in this community for 19 years. And of those 19 years, I have been blessed to work in the Ithaca City School District. So I have three children. They've been raised by GIAC and within the district. So there's the dichotomy of that, seeing being raised in GIAC and then being a part of the district. And Black joy is really just an opportunity to, when I see brown and Black folks being able to be their authentic selves in whatever environment, not having to code switch, that's Black joy for me. Opportunities like this for us to get together. And I do want to say that Miss Maynard, you know, you talked about Miss Maynard, you talked about Miss Lee, your father. Those were all people that were instrumental in my development and growth when I came. So I just want to give a shout out and say thank you, Mr. Fee. He took me under his wing like I was his own child. And then Miss Lee and Miss Maynard, when I was at Beverly J. Martin, she also made sure that she looked out for me and just kind of taught me the ropes and pitfalls and things I needed to think about as I was entering you know, the workplace. But yeah, just grateful to be here, and especially with these esteemed colleagues on this call. So thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to Miss Nicole LaFave. Thank you for allocating time to be here as well. and know that your plate is full and beautiful, but this is really important that you're here. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Nia. My name is Nicole Lefave. I have been in this community for almost 18 years. I'm originally from Harlem, New York City. I am the Assistant Director of Diversity Alumni Programs at Cornell University. I have 3 beautiful, amazing Black children who attend the Ithaca City School District. When I think of Black joy, such a big question, I would say Black joy is being able to live, being able to feel free. I think we use words like freedom and liberation so loosely, and they've changed over the years from thinking about, if we're talking about Marcus Garvey, if we're talking about Angela Davis, those definitions have changed because we have gained, but we've also lost. So I think being able to move through space and time, and for Dr. Nia to be able to ask us all to sit and breathe. Like while I'm sitting here breathing, I'm thinking about all the things that I need to do for work, for my kids, to prepare for next week. So joy is being able to sit still in my emotions and feelings and not being able, not coddling what other people need from me. I would also say Black joy is being able to sit on the screen and see Dr. Bradwell, who was my professor 17 years ago, who really introduced me to diversity, equity, inclusion, and Black studies, and taught me the importance of speaking my own personal truth. Black joy is seeing our superintendent, a Black man in New York State, who is leading education, whose name is across the nation. Black joy is having Shelley being an HR director of the city. It's Black excellence. It's us not being extraordinary, but being examples and representation for all of our kids, and not just Black kids, but all of our kids, to see that we continue to strive and we continue to be resilient even when the stacks are not in our court. So us creating this space, taking time on a Friday to make space for each other is Black joy for me.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to Miss Jessica. Welcome. Welcome to the space. Give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to everybody. Thank you for being here. Just like everyone else, thank you for taking time, because time is something.
Thank you. Thank you for having the kind of holding the space for us. So my name is Jessica Custer-Bindle. And let's see, I'm a teacher. I'm a kindergarten and first grade teacher this year, both at BTHM. And I've been here about 11 years. Let's see, I feel like this is the longest I've ever lived any place. I have been an immigrant 3 times over. So I am originally, my mom is East African, she's Ethiopian and Eritrean. My dad is Somali and Italian. And, you know, they immigrated to Italy, and eventually it wasn't very safe for us. And we immigrated to Saudi Arabia. We immigrated then to United States, and now here I am. And so I guess, let's see, oh yeah, I have 2 children also. I'm a mom of 2 elementary school children. And Black joy for me means, when I think of Black joy, I think of the sense of community, right? Coming from, I lived, you know, when I was young, it was being with my aunties and being with, you know, just kind of having the sense of community of just African people, you know, being proud of who we are. And that to me was Black joy, you know, and I feel like, gosh, it's when I first moved to Ithaca, it was hard to find that. I had a really hard time finding that sense of community and belonging. And so I'm very happy that like you're holding this and talking about this. So yeah, Black joy to me is this kind of tradition of having the space for ourselves, you know, having a sense of community, loving our children, loving our, you know, our families, our aunties, our uncles. That's Black joy.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so very much. Indeed. I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Lavelle Brown. Welcome to the space. Thanks so much again, time, allocating time for us all to be together. Thank you for being here. Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nunn, and greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be in a space with such excellence. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm Lou Bell Brown. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as superintendent for the last decade, and I love this community. As I'm thinking about and reflecting about Black joy, I'm recognizing how few opportunities and few times that's happened for me. And because, typically the spaces aren't safe for us. And I'm feeling joy right now. I'm feeling joy because of the people on the call. I'm feeling joy, not by what's being said, but by what's not being said. The mannerisms, the ways in which I feel safe. I'm hoping we really explore, you don't learn, you don't grow unless you're safe first. And for the first time in a long time, I feel safe. And it's not even about what y'all saying, it's about what you are doing with your faces and your eyes and your hands, which is cultural. So again, thank you for allowing me to just reflect on what joy is, because I thought I was feeling joyful at times, but I wasn't really feeling joy until. And I just want to say thank you for it. And please know how much I love you and appreciate you for giving me this nugget of a moment in a day in the life of a superintendent.
Indeed, indeed. Mr. Amos, how are we doing? We're co-hosting, right? But I'm just like, people need to know, if they don't already know, who you are. Sir.
Well, I'm Amos Malone. As of last Friday, I've been living in this community for 50 years. I feel like Dr. Brown, I'm almost overcome with emotion to just sit here amongst the elite. We have Mrs. Lee, Mrs. Maynard, Mrs. Nunn, Mr. Fee. I can't even, just everybody in general. Dr. Brad, just to see Nicole, different ones doing different things and listening, it's amazing for me. And Black joy is consistency. And throughout the years as a child growing up, many of you may know my father was killed in an accident in 1980. I was 9. I started going to moving up. And at the time, Mr. Fee was the director of Southside. And I ended up, getting my girlfriend at the time pregnant, and I was 15. And he actually is the one that pulled me in the office and was like, hey, look, you got a phone call, and she had just found out. And they didn't shun me. He kind of just, put his arms around me. I don't even know if he remembers this, but he kind of just put his arms around me and was like, hey, man, you know what? We can get through this. You don't have to trip out. I started acting out and he pulled me to the side, bro. He said, this is not cool. Your father wouldn't want this for you. He said, but you gotta, it's a situation. He said, this is our situation. He claimed probably more responsibility for what had happened than I did. And throughout the years, just knowing him and the other elders that are on the call, this is the consistency that brings joy. And it makes me, even though I went south, but thank God I'm going north now, and to be an example for others. And even as a local pastor now, a lot of experiences I went through and seen, and opportunities I've had throughout my life dealing with the community elders and things, it has helped me in my pastoral role to help others. And sometimes people will say, well, how do you know this here? I can't give away all the secrets, but a lot of it is come from, opportunities like that. And, and I'm very thankful and I'm grateful. And I've learned over the years, just looking, from Mrs. Scott, from Bev Martin, from different ones, as a Black person, we have to walk around, confident in what we're doing. We have to have an attitude of gratitude and a sense of belonging. And we have to make sure, Mrs. Carr, Arlene Carr, I don't want to forget her, to be able to do something, to aspire to be someone. We may not be who we want to be just yet, but we thank God that we're not who we used to be. And then to go back to fast forward, you see Mrs. Little, athletic director, Nicole, she's doing school board. You see Dr. Brad's up at IC, and then to see Dr. Brown to come into a community that was kind of whitewashed, to come in, kind of fit in, however he managed to do that, and to excel, and then to be all over the nation. And I was talking about him today. I said, you know, this guy has won Superintendent of the Year. And so he has set the bar so high of what we can achieve and accomplish if we stay focused and stay consistent. I don't want to take too much time because I got a bunch of stories, but anyway, I'm just thankful to be on here today with you all. And it's not about me, it's about you all and what you have done. And if I never get a chance to say anything to any of you all anymore, I want to say thank you for your consistency. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your kindness and all the things you do. Mrs. Maynard, the Lees, the nuns, Dr. Nia, a young Black woman that just exuberates you. She hits a room and she makes young people look at her. And the fact that Dr. Nia, it lets them know, look, you can still be cool. You can still dance. You can still enjoy yourself. You can still smile. You can hang with anybody, but you still can hold this title of, I'm a professor. And these are examples that our people need to see, our young people, our youth. And so, and then Jessica, listening to Saudi Arabia, Africa, it's just amazing. These are places that you see on TV, you dream of. A lot of people won't ever have a chance to go, but to have someone in our community that we can touch that look like us, you know, this is just amazing. And I'm happy to be, and I'm honored to be even asked to co-host anything with the level of people that I'm on here with. So God bless you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Amos, of course. Oh, this is a breath of fresh air to start like this, for us to, you know, do this, right? To honor ourselves, and to honor one another. And then the ways in which we model that is glorious. And in addition to that, we keep it real, right? We're also quite honest with each other. I think we're a very honest bunch. And so it is imperative that we have a macro systemic conversation, and we get specific, right? And so we have acknowledged one another. We've acknowledged the incredible teaching. And I'd like to bring us to thinking very explicitly, as we always do, about our youth, about our young people. And one of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like to share a little video, that a group of young people put together, teenagers from the village at Ithaca, who have been collecting the stories that represent the ways in which people's joy has been stolen, right? And the different ways that our joy is stolen, and particularly at school. And so I don't know if I introduced myself though. Oh wait, Dr. EB is coming back. So I wanna make sure he can introduce himself, but I am Dr. Nia Nunn, Associate Professor at Ithaca College in the Department of Education. And along with Amos Malone, I serve as the board member at Southside Community Center, and mother of 3 boys and cartwheels all over the place. But I wanna welcome in, before showing this video, Dr. EB, my colleague and friend and neighbor. I wanna give you an opportunity to share your voice, please. And then we're gonna show a video that a group of young people put together.
Well, first, my quick apologies, as other people have already know that internet is not always guaranteed, right? So struggling to get things back up and running. Let me also say I know you're talking about Black joy. Part of the joy for me is being able to see a number of faces that I've seen a couple times in the past couple weeks, and I haven't seen anybody in 3 or 4 months. And so this just feels warm to see some folks as well. Sean Eversley Bradwell, I cannot compete with my mentors, but I've been here since 1995, taught in the Ithaca City School District for about 8 years. And then I've been on faculty at Ithaca College for the past 20 years, and delighted to be in this community. When I heard you ask about Black joy, I'd say two things for me. One is laughter. I spend a lot of time around Black folk, and our ability to laugh and to laugh together is absolutely essential. It's one of the things that's been hardest about COVID, to not be able to share space together. And then for me is a quote from a song by Talib Kweli. It's actually the name of my internet that went out. He has a line that says, "Running with bare feet, she had nothing but her soul. Freedom is the ultimate goal." And so for me, I think Black joy is also about forms of Black liberation. And I'm committed to hoping to liberate myself and have others help me be liberated. So thank you, Dr. Nia, for all you do. Thank you for the folks that are on this call. I know the work that you all do intimately, and you help make this be a community that I want to raise my child in, which is done and has already been part of the Saturday Math and Science Academy, but also to raise our grandbaby in. So thank you all.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. E.B. Again, thank you for allocating time to be here, and just truly understand the internet dynamics. It's the same here. Plug in, 3 boys and all of that. And so what I was talking about a little bit earlier about a video that I want to share. But first I want to acknowledge Village at Ithaca, the executive director, Meryl Phipps. She just recently sent this to me, and it's been incredible to have exposure to the work that is coming out of Village of Ithaca. And I'm also, Amos can speak to our excitement about a lot of the partnerships that we have going on between Southside Community Center and Village of Ithaca. We actually have teenagers engaged in their schooling and Zooming from upstairs, while we have another small group of young people downstairs who are, we're trying to keep everybody plugged in, but also what's so beautiful about having the young people in the space is that there is space for them to breathe. And so, it's incredible. We can have, a couple 6-year-olds doing cartwheels and 15-year-olds who then join them during a break from their computer. So, but I am transitioning into, it's really critical that we have this opportunity to name our joy, Black joy, and there's so much gratitude in creating an opportunity for us to do that. And in addition to that, it is imperative that we are explicit about the ways in which joy, Black joy, is stolen. And so I am sharing with you a 2-minute clip that young people that are the young people of Village of Ithaca put together. And it's a part of a larger project that they've been working diligently on for some time, that is about stolen joy, the ways in which our joy is stolen. So I have this piece to share, and then I would encourage everyone to tune in to their Instagram page and the series of videos. So here we go. And this is a true story.
There's a light in the darkness, though the night is black as my skin. There's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been. There's a cry in the distance. It's a voice that comes from deep within.
I remember the first time I realized school wasn't for me. I was little, like first or second grade. And my friend and I, we decided to walk out of school and go home. We climbed the trees on the playground for a little bit and then we just left. No one came after us. No one said anything. That's when I realized they probably didn't even want us here in the first place. I didn't even have a school to go to after the 8th grade. I was in and out of institutions so much that they stopped enrolling me in school. And eventually I got my GED when I was 16 in jail. When I came out, everyone I knew was still in school. So when I tried to register, so I had something to do, they said that wasn't allowed. And before I knew it, I was locked up again. I guess it just always seemed that I belonged more here than in school. So here I am, still.
There's a light in the darkness, though the night is black as my skin. There's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been. There's a cry in the distance.
Wow.
I think before it started, I said that it's a true story, right? That it's not just a true story, but a common story, regular story, and to give us an opportunity to just breathe and respond to this short piece. Thoughts, reactions, feedback for the young people who are working on this project to share with the community.
I have some thoughts, if I may. That piece triggered trauma that I have. As I look at the screen, each of us has had our own traumas. Just to be in a space and look like us is traumatic. To survive school is you can't survive school looking like us and not have your trauma from school. I'm only here because of joy and love I got at home, coupled by some pockets of joy and love I got at school, because my mama knew some people. That dude's story I just heard was the one of my friends who ain't here no more. And unfortunately, that story I just heard probably could have been or should have been me too. I think that's why we all doing this work. And we're doing this work to interrupt that. And that's not just happening in schools, that's happening in professional settings, it's happening in the community settings, it's happening everywhere. That interruption of our joy, that stealing of our joy is happening all day, every day. And watching that, I'm being vulnerable right now, was traumatic for me. I try to put it away, I try to ignore it. But when it's in your face like that, it hurts. So I don't have a solution, but you ask for a reflection. That's every day we in that space. No matter how many degrees, no matter how much money you got, what you wear, you can put on a fancy suit. That is what we have to deal with every single day. So I'm looking forward to a way we can talk about this, to just be vulnerable about the trauma that we all have, but also how do we work to disrupt it, or to inspire some other folks to help us disrupt it.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I'm just, before I pass the mic to someone else in terms of your just reaction, reflection, I want to welcome Deanna. We have a new community member who's joining us. And she is, perhaps she'll pop in when she pops in, and when that works, we'll make that happen. But others, reactions, responses to the 2-minute piece that was shared.
Yeah. Mhm.
Ms.
Yes,
Lee.
yes, thanks so much. You know, I would just like to say that number one, it was beautifully done aesthetically, but it was so very beautiful. So the folks who did the camera work did a very moving, really beautiful job. I mean, I was able to see through all of that and try to be the best listener ever and go right to, once I heard the young man open his mouth, to go right to his heart. I heard something so sad. I have always taught very young children. He said first or second grade, and I said, oh my God, what the hey? How could someone not have turned around to look for and see that two students weren't there? Once he mentioned that they ran away and just got up and left the school, my heart fell. So I could see, I have seen, I have felt, I have known, I noticed all of what that young man has shared with us. We have a long ways to go because he's a grown young man now. And for him to have all of that on his heart today just lets us know that we never really get rid of these feelings. It's a part of us. You know, Jay-Z says, you know, shake it off. You know, we want to do that. And we do that. And we garner strength and wisdom and guidance from all over and from each other. That's what makes me know that I could take the next step each morning to start my day at school. I take a deep breath and say, Denise, you get in there. You can do this because the children will help to bring you alive. And you both will rock and roll together, staff and children. I just feel so very badly that that young man felt that and that it's still on him. We have a long ways to go. So I would love to talk further and find out the other stories, the other 2-minute stories.
Yeah.
I know we have them. And so I can't wait to hear how we could kind of knit and crochet something together to be of help for our young people together as a community.
Nicole, thank you so much, Ms. Lee. Thank you so much for your reflection. Nicole?
I guess watching the clip, it made me think about my first, second grade self, as well as kids right now, and my youngest is in first grade. So it made me incredibly emotional to think about a 6 or a 7-year-old already being in the world and saying, I do not belong. No one is looking for me. So about, this is me putting my Board of Education hat on. When we think about Common Core, kids falling behind, I find that we can't even get to that conversation because right now we're talking about kids feeling loved and being seen in the world. And when you are in first or second grade and you're talking about running away and you know no one's looking for you, that is painful. And then thinking about what Mrs. Lee just said about that pretty much manifesting in other relationships, and just thinking about folks who have attachment issues, who have abandonment issues. Besides school, those power dynamics continue to follow you regarding you seeing yourself in the workplace, you finding yourself in emotionally, physically abusive relationships, like how you see yourself just is impacted so much by when you're 6 and 7 years old. So to think about our students in the district and to know that we have kids who feel that way, I don't even know how we get to the place to talk about strategic planning and professional development, because there's just so much love that kids aren't feeling. And where do we go? How do we start? How do we have that conversation? So for me, it was incredibly heartbreaking to think about a child being 17 years old and reflecting back on that starting point when he felt like he didn't belong here, not in school, but just here.
Nicole, I felt, oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, hi guys. So I just wanted to say, listening to everybody speak, when I saw that, my heart sank, right? Because we can all relate to this. Like, we've all felt versions of this. And kind of going back to, that's why it's so important to have Black educators. That's why it's so important to have Black teachers in our schools, because these are our children, right? These are our children. And yeah, like, we look back at our experiences as children ourselves, and I don't know about you, but I did not have any Black teachers as a child, zero, right? I was raised in Europe, right? And then in Saudi Arabia. And by the time I came to the States, still no Black teachers, right? And so we have this kind of people that see us, that don't look like us, sometimes don't really see us, right? They just kind of see this kind of, they have stereotypes. I'm not really sure, but this kind of love that young children need is so critical. Like when in elementary school, we're talking about kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they need love. They need love first. They need to feel love. They need to feel safe. Everything else will come later. So yeah, when I saw that, I was like, the importance of Black teachers.
Dr. Evie, thank you so much, Jessica. It's really just, we can.
Yeah, I want to reiterate everything everybody just said. I think the silence was us all reliving our own sort of childhood experiences in one way or the other. And at the same point in time, I had two other thoughts. One was this notion of being invisible, so I'm not even seen in the world. And the flip side, what I experience as being an educator and administrator is this hypervisibility that I'm going to keep my eye on you so much that I'm going to kick you out of the school. And so trying to figure out how those two of those merge together, if that makes sense, right? Like either I see you or I'm trying to criminalize you in one way. And so what it also made me think of, and I know Dr. Nia and a number of folks, was Bettina Love's book, We Want to Do More Than Survive. And that I'd presume that many of us on this call became teachers to make sure that we could protect as many students as possible from that very experience. So I became an educator to protect potential, as Bettina Love says. That's all I wanted to do, was try to help as many students as possible to protect potential. And so what does that mean? I think Nicole's right in terms of how do we even get to some other conversations. I'm with you on that, right? Like we're talking about baseline issues oftentimes, and that's heart-wrenching. And we need to encourage as many folks as possible to love our babies.
Ms. Maynard, yes, please.
I felt stunned and devastated for a moment, and then I kind of shook myself out of it because I've heard that story so many times. But what bothers me a lot is that that young man was in an environment that was very toxic, that the mere fact that he can walk out of a school and no one noticed him, the teacher, the principal, the nurse, somebody, that environment probably was not a very caring, loving environment, because caring and loving environments are where young people are loved and felt, not only just from the classroom teacher, but from everybody, the lunchroom people, the custodians. So I thought to myself, that's an area that we have to pay attention to, the environments that our Black and brown kids are subjected to, not only our kids, but us as adults, as professionals in these hostile environments where there is no respect, no care, and no one who got our backs. And so I said, my God, second grade, this young man just walked out of a building. Anything could have happened to him. You know, that's that's devastating. That's somebody's child. That's my child, Sergei's child. That's how I thought about it, you know. And I thought about an incident that had happened a couple of years ago, and I like to share it with you. I was on my way to Shortstop. You know, Shortstop is just a short ways from my school where I taught, Beverly J. Martin Elementary School. And it was during lunchtime, and I saw two young men coming down Albany Street. One of the young men was African-American. I happen to know his family very well. And then the other young man was a colleague, a friend of his from the school. And they decided to leave Boynton Middle School and walk downtown. So as I was coming across the street, I said to the young man, where are you going? And he said that they had permission to leave school and to go to the Commons for something. And so I said, what do you mean you have permission to leave school? You know, you should be in school. This is the time you should be in school. And so, you know, they gave me the runaround. So what I did as a community person, as a caring person, I went back into the school after I purchased what I purchased at Shortstop. And I called Boynton Middle School and I reported the students, both students. I only knew one by one's name, and something was done. So as a community person, I played a role in that these two young people were playing hooky or whatever they are, skipping out on school. But as a community member, as a community mom, I knew they should have been in school, and they were doing something that they had no business doing. So I took it upon. That may be eavesdropping or being nosy or not minding your business, whatever. But the parents thanked me, the father thanked me for, you know, as they would say, dropping a dime. I went to the school and dropped a dime on that young man and his friend. And the school did call, and they had Mr. Baker or one of the people from Boynton come down and pick these two young people up. So I just want to share that with you.
Ms. Little, yes. Thank you.
One other maybe reflection, I definitely concur with everything that's been said and can relate. And I think this is unfortunately generation from generation. This is a story that we've heard. I think the beauty in this and what the village at Ithaca is doing in this young man and others is that they have a different medium and platform, whereas our voices could be ignored to some extent, or would only maybe stay within that circle of who we felt comfortable sharing with. With these new platforms of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, it's a beautiful opportunity to make sure that stories are heard and seen. So I want to just encourage that young man and Pastor Malone, you know, it's kind of like when you give a testimony. I mean, you're doing that one for, you know, yourself and your own healing, but also for other people to know that they're not alone in their experience. So I think our young people are so brave, and especially now I am so fortunate to work with Corey Mitchell and Suki Tabor, and Dr. EB, as you call him, I love that. I'm gonna use that. Has done some work with them this summer, but this iRise group, and just the opportunities that our district is giving students. I just feel like now I'm hopeful that because it's more prevalent and in different arenas that now we're gonna make some of those institutional changes. And to go, you know, Nicole, you say, what do? We have to blow up our curriculum. Because I feel, yes, you have to have Black teachers, but I also feel you have to have a variety of teachers who, you know, the curriculum should start with love. And it should start about the criticality of understanding equity and power and self-identity. That should be at the core, and then, you know, get into math and science, and because it's all related and interconnected.
I completely agree with you, Samantha. But however, to the representation point, when we think about blowing up the curriculum, we also have to acknowledge the statistics and our demographics of teachers, like not even in Ithaca, but across the country. So we're talking about white middle-class women, and how do we get them to a place to be having these self-reflecting conversations about love and the different love that they're giving our students, and the fact that they're not ready, and how do you get folks to do work when they're not ready?
Mm.
Well, just want to respond to that a little bit. I think one, it's difficult. I agree. I think it's both, and it's difficult to do that. But once you identify sort of the desired outcomes, and then you build the systems that support that and reinforce, you know, and I know I'm saying this like it's an easy thing to do. Trust me, it is not. But it's really important to have those systems in place that support that particular desired or those particular desired outcomes. And I think what happens over time, or what I've seen happen over time, is that if you have the accountability in those systems, that people will make the shift or they will deselect themselves out of that system because they can't, you know, they can't get around it. But it's not an easy task. It takes a political will to do that, because you will be ruffling feathers, you're changing status quo, and there's going to be resistance.
Yeah, talk about resistance. Sometimes I'm like, okay, even reflecting on, you know, the use and exploration of anti-racist concepts and frameworks. It's just so critical that we're like, even conscientious of the ways in which some of that work is presented. So, you know, in thinking about a shift and a transformative shift, it does take commitment, but we also have to, I find myself interrupting certain terms or concepts or identities that folks are even owning, right? Like, you don't know, you don't get to just call yourself anti-racist. No, you don't get to just assign yourself a title of an abolitionist teacher, right? Or even somebody's comrade, you know? So when I think about, I'm very protective of certain terms, right? That Mama Scott was an abolitionist teacher, an abolitionist educator, right? And we can speak to some, and if anything, what I'm seeing and what I'm appreciating is or what I end up interrupting or emphasizing is that no, folks are, you know, perhaps emerging, right? Or on this journey, and just being explicit about that journey. But yeah, I think in bringing it directly back to what my mom was saying about both and in terms of Black teachers, one of the statistics that I wanted to just drop is the reality that, you know, there's a 30% higher chance of a Black child graduating if they've had a Black teacher by third grade. And then if two, you know, 45% chance, right? So these are the statistics that actually Dr. Love highlights. But at the same time, speaking to what Nicole is saying, I am a professor of future educators, right? Teaching at Ithaca College. And the great majority of my classes are, in fact, white students and white women. And so as I am committed to taking them on a journey of self-discovery, right? But also, what does it take to create these incredible learning environments where young people, Black children, feel love, and not only a sense of belonging, but a sense of purpose in each class. And so that is something that I, you know, on the other end of the spectrum of a child, you know, disappearing from a space and folks not even recognizing that they're gone. But here I am, like, really, really working with these young teachers to prepare them to have these incredible spaces, these transformative spaces, emerging into abolitionist spaces, right? But you have to understand what an abolitionist was. An abolitionist broke laws, shifted and transformed dynamics, contributed to something extremely transformative. So pause reaction. Amos, I'm gonna pass the mic to you as we dive in. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just listening that, and I, like so many others, it hit home. I mean, my own story, I was at South Hill School, fourth grade, maybe third grade. Me and a buddy of mine, we left. There was a little store right a couple doors down from the school. We went to the store, and then we looked at each other, and he had sisters and brothers that was at the high school, and so did I. I said, let's go see what the big kids are doing. And we went on down. We walked through the commons, went down. We hid from Boone under the bridge. And then we came back and, you know, we were good. And when Mrs. Maynard, I don't know if you saw my face when she was talking, my aunt happened to see me on the commons, and we took off running like she didn't know who I was. And we got back to school and, you know, got on the bus and went home. And the boy's mother, somehow she found out, and she called my mother, and, you know, it didn't go so well for me, and neither did it go well for him, you know. But there again, we began to talk about, you know, these things, you know, this story is not, it's not an uncommon story, and that's the unfortunate part of it. And so, I mean, is there a breakdown in the system? I won't point the finger at the school. But we can look as a community. Everybody didn't have a Mr. Fee that would pull you to the side and hug you and say, hey, you know, we're going to get through this together. And a lot of people didn't have a Mrs. Maynard that thought enough of the kids. She could have said, forget it. You know, I'm not saying anything. Let them do what they're going to do. But she took the time to take that extra step. And I think in our lives moving forward as we are right now, I think what has happened, our lives have gotten so busy and so complex that a lot of our children have slipped, I won't say through the cracks, but they've slipped in the cracks. And some of them we can still get out of the cracks. And unfortunately, like this young man, you know, when you feel like prison is a place where you're accepted, you know, we have to look at ourselves to say, you know, what can we do? Honestly, what can we do to change this? Not the school, not the school district, not the teachers. The teachers are in-house at home. And like Dr. Brown was saying, fortunately, all of a sudden here, I'm looking at all of us, you know, and I dare to say, due to the love that we received at home, we've made it this far. Because we had someone that would push us, someone that cared about us, and someone that loved us, that thought more about us than we thought about ourselves. So I think, you know, and as far as the community, I mean, moving forward, I mean, this is one of the things the South Side, we've really, as board members, we've really been doing a lot of talking about. How can we make this space safe? How can we make it a desired place to come to, where the kids are feeling loved no matter what the situation? I mean, I don't know who's all watching. I mean, I don't even know no names, and I'm not going to say any names anyway. But in particular, one day there was a issue, a domestic violence issue, and the young lady came there, and when I walked in, Dr. Nia and some others were taking her to the side. But what I noticed, I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. But I noticed that we as Black people, we're some, as Dr. Nia would say, we're the bomb. We really are, because in certain situations, you know, they just put their arms around the girl. Number one, she needed that. I don't know what was going on. They took her in by herself, and when they closed the door, I could see through the window before, you know, they began to hug her. And at that point, I didn't know if she had lost a family member. Later on, I realized what had happened. But this is where it starts. What do we have in our community? What is in place that our people, you know, they have safe spots. Shortstop is a safe spot until Mrs. Maynard walks through and, you know, drops a dime on you. But, you know, Southside is a safe spot, you know, and these are things we all need to work on, to have a safe spot where the people can come, where our youth can come. They can have a free platform to talk, to feel safe, you know. And then she was talking about the abolitionists, you know, they were shifters. Mama Scott, they were shifters. They didn't just do it. They shifted the atmosphere, you know. however they did it, they did it. They upset the apple cart. So you had to stop and rearrange what you were doing, you know, and take notice. And these types of things, and then it's a commit. It's a commit. You have to commit to say, you know, we're in this for the long haul for our community. And I think if we can do that, I mean, moving up for me, or Mrs. Carr and Mr. Fee, that was for me, that was like a central place, even though I did go ahead and do what I wanted to do later on. But I knew I could go to the South Side if I acted up, because he did it. I got into a fight when I got back to church. My mom just turned around and looked at me. I already knew something had happened. I didn't know what till after church. She said, I got a call from Mr. Fee. Well, I knew I was getting a whooping when I got home. But these are things, even though right then I was upset, but this is all, these are actions of love, that someone cares about you, that took the time out to go beyond yourself to say. So, I mean, I think we're in a good space right now to be able to say, hey, look, we're talking about it. At least we're talking about it, you know, and we can, you know, we're talking about it, you know, and
definitely. I think with what you're saying, Amos, about, you know, engaging like this is so key, and talking about love, doing this and being explicit. I want to acknowledge, actually, I love it. The folks in the community, folks are jumping on, and some people are communicating a little bit on Facebook as well. One of the things that I want to say, again, bringing back, my mother says this all the time, both and. So it's a little bit of a push and pull, because I'm with you, right? We are Southside, we are space. There are multiple spaces in Ithaca, community spaces that create you know, home places, right? That's the other thing Dr. Love talks about, home places. But the only thing I would like sort of push and pull back on is, you know, the responsibility of teachers and schools as it relates to also hiring strong teachers who demonstrate transformative love for all of their students and unapologetically for Blackness. And so Mama Phoebe Brown, who should be on this call as well. I think Jakeem Holton, a few others that have commented, educators out there, Black educators. And one of our next questions is actually about love, and that's something that someone just acknowledged, that Phoebe highlighted, are the ways in which we can be explicit about what does this love look like. And I'm particularly talking about in school and in the classroom and in the hallways and even around the schools. Another comment was about what we mentioned earlier, I mentioned earlier, in terms of statistics and graduation rates, not necessarily for college, but recognizing, you know, the working fields and spaces that will absolutely love our children. But just that statistic that I acknowledged earlier was just about some of the outcomes as it relates to our children having exposure to Black teachers. But the question that Amos and I came up with next is really giving you all, well, I'm gonna ask a couple things just for the sake of time, and give you a chance to take it where you'd like to take it. But telling us about a learning experience or a story from your childhood when it was clear or communicated that your life as a Black child, that it mattered. Where was that? What did that look like? Did that happen for you in the school setting? Bring it to school, to the classroom. Some people say no, not at all. Like where, a school or perhaps a learning environment, right? Because we could think of, you know, I might cheat and say something about young, gifted, and Black. And but is there someone that could speak to, and this helps to answer some of the question that's out there. I think Mama Phoebe put it out there. What is love? What does this look like? Let's start to get explicit. What did you feel? What do you know? Or what might we imagine? Dr. Brown?
Yeah, I would love to go first. And because I remember the day, and I now have the words to put to what happened to me back then. And when it was happening to me, I had no idea what was happening, but I knew that for the first time, an educator was pushing up against white supremacy culture. And that was when she pulled me out of the track that I was in our high school. And I was a kid who wasn't speaking much because of my speech delays. And she pulled me out of a class, the lower level class where my brother and I and all the other Black kids were, and she put me in an honors English class. And what I know she did is she was patient and trusting of me as a learner and me as a thinker, which went against everything that the school was about, which is what our schools are about right now: perfectionism, worshiping of the written word, either or thinking. If he hasn't done these things, if he hasn't done these prerequisites, he can't be in. It was no both and thinking. So when we think about white supremacy culture, I knew something was happening around me when this lady came into the cafeteria and said, "No, you're gonna be in my honors English class now. And you know what? You can't be there alone because people are gonna come for you if you go there by yourself. I'm gonna put your twin brother in there too." And I say to this day, and Sean has heard me say that, that's the reason why me and my brother and I are the only 2 of the 10 that grew up on my road that are still alive. But what I know, and I felt it at the time, now I can put my hands on it, she pushed against white supremacy culture. And I'll be honest with folks on this call who's listening, who listens to this later, we're still doing it right now. Conversations about grading, conversations about attendance, conversations about curriculum, conversations about the policies that Sean is working so hard to change every single day. They're all grounded, they're all built upon white supremacy. The inequities that we're on here talking about, these issues that, Bettina said it best, these issues that we're talking about changing, they're not a flaw or a bug in our system. They're a feature in our system. It's been designed to be this way. When you talk about a 100-point scale, when you talk about failing kids, when you talk about, I'm gonna mark you absent if your camera's not on, look at the research about white supremacy and you'll see the words there. And those words are not honesty, patience, trust, forgiveness, commitment, caring. See, that's what love is. So everybody wants to talk about they loving or they want to be about love. But when it comes down to being about love, they recognize how hard it is and how it's not the default in our schools.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Is that Amos?
I don't know if that was just a mic drop, Amos, or you were going to speak.
That was a mic drop.
Oh, Dr. Evie.
I have 2 experiences. The first one is very similar to what Dr. Brown just shared. I was suspended multiple times in high school. Went to a racist high school, right? And there was 5 Black kids in my graduating class of 300. We were all cousins. There was a larger number of Latinx students, right? About 30% of the school was brown folk, but the way in which the school operated was in a complete system of white supremacy. I was going to be suspended one day and my father showed up with me before they were going to suspend me. And in essence, he let the administration know that they were going to treat his son a particular way. He then looked at me and said, "You and I will talk when you get home." Right, about my actions, but he let folks in that room know that he expected something from them. And from that day forward, I was treated vastly different in the school. And so I remember that had it not been for my father saying the things that he said in the strong terms he said then, that I probably would have still been suspended throughout the course of time. And so that's, Dr. Brown talks about remembering the day. I remember that day vividly. And then I also remember the conversation we had when I got home as well. The day that's probably most important for me in terms of my own academic thinking, unfortunately happened when I was in college. And I was sitting in a college classroom, teacher asked a question, and that was the moment that I realized that some students may have read more than me. I didn't have many books in my house. Some students may be able to spit more facts than me, but it didn't mean that they could think. And I remember that moment hit me like, oh, you all act like you're smart. Doesn't mean that you actually know how to think. I'm disappointed that took college for that to happen. But I also remember being in that classroom. Again, I can tell you what I was wearing. And I remember realizing that the ways similar to, I think, what Dr. Brown was saying, the way in which we talk about educating kids is not about whether I get an 87 on the test, right? It's about my level of being inquisitive. Can we have conversations? Will someone even spend the time to talk with me? And so I made a point when I became a teacher to this day, obviously, to try to engage in as many of those conversations as possible. and tell my students they can buy me lunch whenever they want.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Evie. Thank you for your story. Nicole.
I think I can say I'm probably one of the lucky people on this panel where I went to middle school, high school in Harlem, Frederick Douglass Academy, that had a incredibly radical mission. So I had the experience of learning Japanese from 6th to 11th grade, and my Japanese teacher was a Black woman. The power of that representation for me to see myself doing that was beyond me. Having a calculus teacher who was from Guyana. So I had the experience of being surrounded by Black educators who pushed me, and who also, my AP history teacher was a Harvard lawyer. My global teacher worked on Wall Street. And I mention these accolades because they could have been in white corporate America, but they decided to go into public education where they were being paid 1/3 of what their salary was, because they believe in the potential and the capacity of Black children in giving back and paying it forward. When I think about my college experience, I think about Dr. Bradwell and having lots of conversations with him, and him telling me when I was messing up and I needed to do better and I needed to work harder because of the expectations. And I think part of Black love is that of love where you have someone that's pushing you and telling you that you can do more and be more if you see yourself doing things, and if you have someone that's holding you accountable. So being Black teachers and Black educators is so important, because growing up in Harlem, I was surrounded by poverty. That was all that I knew. And it wasn't until I went to Ithaca College and the moment my joy was taken away was just, meeting this white girl in Texter Hall. And her first conversation with me was telling me that, there was one Black family in her town, and that the Ku Klux Klan still met in her church. And I just remember this alarming moment of, this is not where I'm supposed to be. Looking back, I know now that she was trying to connect with me, but then I was like, I need to run. Academia, education is not a place for me. And this is her signal. This is her way of telling me that. So again, going back to having Black educators and reminding myself how important it is for me to push against the status quo and to speak up and to disrupt is critical.
Thank you, Nicole. Either childhood stories, I've got some, and some of you are there. Yes. I tell the students all the time, especially with, especially struggling readers or folks who read real slow, like, you remember, Mom? She's like, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Well, you put me on the panel.
Yes, and remember, was it the kindergarten teacher that was, and then Miss Lee came in and was like, absolutely not, and taught me to just perform my reading as I do today.
Yeah. They had you in the lower level, and Miss Lee called me in and sat me down and said, "This child don't belong in here. Take her out." And I was like, "No problem, no problem." Yeah. And the other thing, when you were in the 5th grade, I remember transitioning to middle school, and you had some testing issues, and so she was never a tester, and you had tested in the lower level math going into the middle school, and the teacher called me and said, "Well, I really think she can do the middle level," she said, "I really think we should put her in the middle level," and I said, "Do you think she can perform at the advanced level?" And she thought about it, and she said, "Yes." I said, "Put her in there." And you went in there, and here you are.
Yeah, our stories are so common. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and still to this day, I remember my 3rd grade teacher. Her name was Miss Willis, and she was a Black woman, and she was strict. And I never understood why she was so very strict until today. She made us sit in order, speak clearly, checked our cursive. That's where third grade took place, cursive. And Miss Willis, she was the bomb. She showed up at my doorstep. She came into the ghetto. She kept communication with my parents. And I'll never, to this day, I'm 63 years old, and I remember Miss Willis in third grade. She had an incredible impact on my life. And she said, little Fifi, you're going to be a teacher.
And you know, I want to say something too about, you know, we talk about, I hear you talk a lot about love. And I know Dr. Brown, that's sort of the mantra in the school district, you know, teaching with love and leading with love. Sorry. Okay. Yes. And I'm not in the district, but anyway, leading with love. And it makes me think about how important it is for kids, or how keen kids are on what you think about them without you saying a thing. They pick up. And I remember, Nia, the young women, the empowerment group with the young girls who were in middle school, and sitting there, it broke my heart to listen to them say things like, she think I'm stupid. Yeah, I mean, they pick up on how you feel. And so, yes, we need Black teachers. There's no question about that. And we need, we need white teachers who believe in our kids, who believe that they can perform. Because if they don't believe it, it gets transmitted to the kids. And you all know this, you're educators. But, I had a son in high school who performed like well in some classes and not well in others. And so I went to see the teacher who he was performing well in to find out, what is it that you're doing? Because I need to educate the other teachers on how to do this. And what she said to me, well, I know he can do it. I know he can do the work. That's all she said. It was just about what she believed, that she believed he could do the work. And he performed in her class because of that, and because of the relationship that he had with her. And he knew she cared about him, and it mattered.
I just want to say, I'm listening to everybody and I'm thinking, and I was like, I wish I had a story. I wish I had a story where I could say, oh yeah, that teacher really. And I'm thinking back in my, elementary, middle school, high school experiences. I don't have a story like that, right? My stories are probably a lot of what you guys are talking about. I experienced a lot of that, right? Of just low expectations and no real relationship. And to me, like what I'm hearing is this kind of like, when you first asked about Black joy, I said about the sense of community, right? And we live in a small community, and I feel like we're all Black folks, we all kind of know each other, that I can feel like, well, I can call you if I see something, and you can call me, and we know, these are our kids. And there's something that is lost when there's not that relationship and not that sense of community, where like, when I think of, for example, Mr. Fee's relationship with that teacher who had a relationship with the parents and so on, I feel like that is missing. That is missing a lot of times. And when that's missing, then the child is somehow that, the child is not fully seen if you don't have that kind of relationship with the child and know their parents, and there's something there, right? So I think that there should be, especially in the elementary level, when we're thinking about like systems changes, there should be a lot of time kind of factored into the time that teachers can, thinking about kindergarten, right? Getting to know all of the families, having time to talk to them, checking in on just, beside academics, right? Like life. So there's that, because, yeah, when I think of my experiences, also because, when I moved to the States, I was 15, and my mother's English wasn't very good, and she didn't feel comfortable going to schools, right? And a school was also not a place where she felt she belonged. It's a very American kind of mindset that parents attend school functions or whatever it is, back to school, whatever. It was like a foreign concept, right? So when you don't have that advocacy from your teachers and I love my parents. I'm here because my parents believed in me, right? And I had that kind of, they lifted me up and I know my expectations, right? So when I didn't get that from school, I had to myself as a young child, as a middle school child in high school, I had to know okay, this is my own expectations and I've got to fight my way through it, no matter what anybody else thinks, right? And gosh, I'm just talking so much. So yeah, I wish I had a story that I could say, well, this teacher did this. But my stories, like my first experience, when I think of when I came here in high school, my guidance counselor basically told me not to register, not to go to college. That was her thing. She didn't think that because I didn't know about SATs, because, I'm coming from Saudi Arabia, I don't know all these things about SATs. Her thing was like, well, you're not going to do well. You might as well just, because I hadn't taken it, PSATs, I hadn't done any of that. So just don't even do it. There's only one left. And you know what? I knew my mother would not have that. I knew I better take those SATs. I went home and I said, Mommy, I need you to pay this because I got to take this test. And I did it. No help to that guidance counselor who tried to discourage me from going to college. I got a scholarship because of my SAT scores, right? Her idea was that I was not smart enough to do well in SATs. Based on what? Based on me, my skin color, right, where I'm from. So it's just, these are the experiences that I came with, right? And so for me, this is why I know it's important to have Black teachers in school. We would never do this to our children. Yeah.
Nia, do you mind if I ask Jessica a follow-up question? Hold on one second. I think that there's some echoing.
Yeah, go right ahead. I think I got it.
So in listening to your story, Jessica, I'm thinking about you talking about self-advocacy and having to lift yourself up. And this question is actually to all of our educators, specifically in ICSD too. I'm wondering what do you think the impact of the lack of that has on our kids as we think about the pandemic? Think about our kids who are falling even more in the cracks and not having that advocacy, having oppressive grading policies right now, and not having that advocacy present, and pretty much us believing that our kids are supposed to rise above that, even though the climate right now is just so hard. And I know you teach kindergarten, but I'm thinking about at the high school level, the middle school level, that we're expecting students, middle school and high school students, to be operating like a college kid. They're supposed to be checking Canvas, checking a syllabus, when we have some kids that are just transitioning from elementary school to 6th grade where they were only in one class. So how do we talk about that advocacy and the fact that we expect these young children to have that level of advocacy when there's so many things that are going on at home that totally outside of their control, which will impact their SATs, impact them getting into college, because their grades might be dramatically different from what they were the previous year. And 11th grade counts, and some of our kids don't have internet. Some of them don't have food. Some of them are living in shelters, and we're expecting them to be able to advocate against a system that is very oppressive, against educators who don't have the lens to even be thinking about outside factors.
Mr. Mitchell, I don't know if Mr. Mitchell's able to get on or not because he's in his car, but I think he could.
He's in there. I see him.
Can you talk, Mr. Mitchell? Because I think
Hi, Mr. Mitchell. Welcome.
He's driving though. Be careful, Mr. Mitchell.
You are not driving.
Hey, I pulled over. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry that I'm late. I had some technical difficulties getting on, but I'm glad to be in this space with everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Could you reiterate the question? I'm sorry, or make it give it to me briefly, because
well, I'll give you a chance to listen in a little bit and have someone else respond to what Nicole just said, and then you dive right in. We still have some time together, Mr. Mitchell. So welcome. Thank you for coming. Dr. Brown, were you gonna? I thought you undo, and then maybe.
I love that I'm feeling like I'm in a board meeting right now because Nicole always pushes our thinking on these tough topics. And actually, she gives me an opportunity to talk about what rarely school districts talk about. What we're talking about is, the system has, whether we want to believe it or not. People were talking about it back in March. Here's an opportunity for our system to change, or here's an opportunity to do new things. Yet the modalities shifted overnight. We're asking kids to do something completely different overnight, but yet the system isn't changing at all right now. We are trying to force what we've been doing for generations on young people and on families, and also ask them to be doing things completely different. We're asking young people to, as Nicole, she laid out so beautifully, that's a completely different experience for a young person right now. Yet we're still attempting to grade using the same 100-point scale we've always used, or we're still attempting to implement the same standards that we've always been doing. So this, nothing changes until policy changes first. We're a long way from changing policy to impact the kind of changes that we know need to happen for our schools. Because before we can even change the policy, we need to reflect or be aware about what we're even doing. How many folks have talked about, I wonder now, since kids are now learning from home, we're asking families to now help them do that. It's going to be hard to even get to all of our curriculum. We may want to just rethink our standards and rethink our grading practice. I mean, we're in that self-reflection mode right now, just to be aware of what is it that we're attempting to do. And, because of Mr. Mitchell's leadership and Samantha Little's and Jackie Richardson, we're now engaging in our educators. We're now engaging in the conflict that's going to need to take place to change the way in which we grade, to change standards will require a significant amount of intellectual friction because it's going to be so different from anything we've ever done. And I'm going to say it now, it may get me in trouble. That's why I'm going to look to my board member to help me out. It's going to push against a white supremacy culture. Perfectionism, a sense of urgency, worship of the written word, all those characteristics are embedded in how we, power hoarding, how we determine whether or not a kid is learning or not, how we grade them, all of this. So this intellectual friction conflict phase that I hope we can get to sooner than later is going to really be hard. Because right now we're just in an awareness phase. To understand, we've been hit over the head and we should be changing everything we do because we're asking our young people and families to do something completely different.
Nicole, can I follow up on that? Because I think your question has forced me to been doing a lot of thinking, and you and I have been having some of this conversation over the past couple of days about grading as well. And one of Dr. Nia set me up last semester, and that one of her students came at me publicly in class, rightfully so, about the very idea you're asking about. And so two things. One, my students, I have some students who are living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a family of 8. And you say to me, you want me to try to find a quiet space to be able to be on a Zoom call, to be able to pay attention to what you're teaching. And I got other folks who have an entire basement to themselves and got multiple devices and are able to do whatever they want to do when there's a research paper. So one of my students said to me, Doc, all I have is my iPhone and you want me to write a 12-page research paper? Or can you do me a favor and can I audio record my response to demonstrate to you that I'm thinking about what's talking about and not have that complete commitment to the written word as if it's, no pun intended, my apologies, Rev, gospel, right? Like that's part of a complete culture shift in that regard. And so Dr. Nia's student said to me, Dr. Bradwell, are we living in different times? Yes. Is the world uncertain? Yes. Has the college semester been shaken up in ways we don't know? Yes. Then why are you using the same grading scheme? Right? Did it in public. And I was like, bro, you couldn't have asked me this offline. But it was a beautiful moment for me to say, yeah, I have to reflect. The fact that I would try to be implementing the exact same grading rubric when I can acknowledge that we're not in normal times was the moment that I needed to realize that my complete syllabus needed to change. Now I realize I have the privilege as a faculty member of doing that in my class. Now we're talking about a school system and how do we push a school system of 6,000 folks to recognize the exact same thing has to take place. We are not in normal times. I can't And A does not mean the same thing when two students are asked to do it under vastly different conditions. And why am I going to sort of continue to reinforce that same notion of not just white supremacy, but economic supremacy as well? So I completely support what you're saying. And I know that we as a district need to push in some ways that are going to make folks very uncomfortable. But if we're trying to be equitable, if we're trying to be inclusive, if we're trying to love all babies, we have no other option.
Dr. Nia, I just want to piggyback on that and just say my experience was much like Jessica's experience throughout my educational journey. And because of my Black mother, because my father's Lebanese, so, you know, he had different privileges than she did, but because of her advocacy for me, and she didn't go to college, but she knew that she wanted me to have the same opportunities that everybody else in that school did that were white, because there was probably 3 of us. Hendy Elementary School, grew up in Elmira, New York, and then through Ernie Davis Junior High and then the high school. I just share that for a little bit of context for folks, but I also want to say there are some things though, just like in the brick and mortar, and it took us all of those years to create these oppressive systems, I do see our educators being creative and flexible and working in pockets. And when we get those exemplar examples in this environment, then we're going to be able to make some shifts and change. I think about Daphne Shalulu and the work that, you know, she is doing through the arts. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the instructional spaces. Every space on a campus or in a building is an instructional space, whether it's the art room or the physical education environment. So I think we have to give a little bit more, understand that a little more deeply. But I do see, you know, these department, and it's not easy. And yes, there's a lot of friction, but I see in the departments at the high school, I mean, elementary, I think lends itself to just being about love more and flexible. But I think at the secondary level, it's harder because you are tracking kids in a different way. But I do see our educators, they are grappling with, and like Dr. Brown said, we're in that reflective state. Everything you knew or know is now turned upside. And for white people, that's hard, right? Because they haven't had to deal with that. So I do just want to give a little bit, not, you know, just, I don't know what it's an and, as Miss Shelley Nunn would say, it's an and.
Mr. Mitchell, as you're listening, you want to dive in a little bit, share your voice. Welcome to the space. I know you've been here for some time, but I'm always excited. I feel like I'm still welcoming you to Ithaca, but how long have you been here now?
This is my 3rd year now.
Right.
This is my new home.
That's right.
As long as I'm welcome here, I do not intend on leaving this space. No, I agree with everything that's been said. It's been a rough, I want to say the last 4 or 5 months have been rough on our admin team at the high school, trying to get our teachers in a space where they can see the challenges that so many of our students are experiencing. And I think a part of that problem, besides the fact that some of our folks have some biases that really blind them and block them from seeing our young people for who they really are, I think one of the challenges is that folks are so stuck. They are so stuck with it. We have folks that are really solid in their content expertise, but they don't have any clue of how to connect with our kids and sit and listen with them. There seems to be such fear, and I have my I have my ideas where that fear comes from, but it's been a difficult journey for the last couple months getting folks to move beyond that. Even in the midst of the pandemic, there's been such rigidity in folk. Now, and I won't say everyone, because we do have the pockets that are doing things. One area that I do see some lifts, some of this weight being lifted is in our English department. The English department is taking the lead on a lot of our initiatives that we're trying to put forward. Next week, they're playing like the primary role in Black Lives Matter at school. Two of our English teachers, Lauren Melander and Sam Ennis, our high school's equity mentors. And what they're doing is they're taking some of the work that we did this summer, that myself, Miss Little, Miss Richardson, the rest of our admin team, and Suki Tabor did over the summer, working with a group of our young people, our Black and Brown students. We created the internship I Rise. And that arose out of, and Mr. Fee, I think I saw him on here with Shelly as well. I can't leave out your dad. Uh, um, we worked with these young people over the summer. They reached out to us as they were frustrated by what they were seeing with the protests going on around the nation. And what I wanted to try to do is, one, I knew things were happening. There were, the negative impacts of the pandemic with GAC, with Youth Bureau shutting down, and I was wondering, what are young people going to do? Where were they going to be? Because since I've been here, uh, those are two places that I spent a lot of time seeing young people doing things, seeing what you and your dad have done with Comet for the summer. So I knew there was a lot of kids that were going to miss out. So we created this safe space for them. One, to open up, and we also wanted to have them to be able to connect the national protests with home here in Ithaca. So that's when we came up with the idea of bringing Dr. Bradwell in. I have fallen in love with the time loop. As much as I want to stop that time loop, it's an amazing piece of writing. And I asked Dr. Bradwell if there's a way that he can break that down for our young people so that they can see their connection here locally, that the issues that are going on that people are bringing up with all the protests, those things aren't foreign to their own backyard. And we were able to do that, and we were able to do more than that. These young people opened up to us and they talked about their experiences. Uh, they committed to this. They met with us 2 or 3 times a week in the summer. So their hearts were in it. And out of that, we created these testimonial videos because I knew we had the data. And I tried to model after Sister Isabel Wilkerson, how she did in The Warmth of Other Suns, the way she did that narrative, where one chapter was with data about the migration to the North, and then the next chapter was about the lived experiences of those people, focusing on that topic, whatever each chapter was. So I wanted to model that so that we can get the data and those voices of lived experiences in front of our teachers, so that we can hit them in the head and hit them in the heart, try to, and use that, the double-edged sword of that, to try to bring about some of the changes that we're now starting to see some cracks. So now next week, the English department, they're showing some of those videos in all of the English classes. We're setting up affinity group breakout sessions, particularly for our students of color, so that they have a safe space to talk about and open up about their experiences. So I think, the biggest thing that I've had as an educator throughout my career was my ability to connect with kids. I was the teacher that they always gave the so-called difficult kids, or in other words, many times it was the black kids, because I was in North Syracuse. I got either the black kids or the poor white kids that nobody else wanted to take the time to hear, to listen, and connect with. And I was perfectly fine with that because that's the environment I grew up. I grew up on the south side of Syracuse. So I was used to teachers, in Syracuse City School District, who didn't hear me. And I heard some of us talk about, experiences that kind of like turned the switch on about what things were really like in the educational system. And mine was in high school when my guidance counselor, even though I was, the STEP program had just started and I was in the first group at Fowler High School. I was in the STEP program. I had always been a good student, hadn't been in trouble, none of that. My guidance counselor was trying to was taking courses at Central Tech in computer technology, computer engineering. This was back in the 80s. And my guidance counselor was trying to get me to switch out of those courses to take auto mechanics. And I'm like, why are you trying to do that? And I didn't understand it. So I went home and I talked to my father about it, who that just lit his fuse, because my family was all about education and all about lifting me up and lifting all young people up. And that was that realization when my dad went into school and met with that counselor. And he told me, he said, I want you to sit out here because I got some things to say to your counselor. And so I sat outside. But when my dad came out of that meeting, I had a different counselor, and there was no more talk about putting me in an auto mechanics program instead of the program that I was already in, which was a college preparatory program that's based on science and technology, the STEM programs. It was the early iterations of that. And that opened my eyes that I was being treated differently than my peers at school. So I have to say, helping our teachers develop these relationships with our students, real authentic relationships, not phony stuff, because our kids read through that a mile away. It's taken me almost 3 years to build some strong relationships with young people here and families here, because one of the role that I'm in. Many times young people look at administrators in the school as 5-0. That's what some of the boys used to tell me. Nah, man, I'm not getting with you. You're 5-0. I'm like, 5-0? Really? We need to have a chat, because I'm the farthest thing away from 5-0. I got you. And it took me some time to build that trust up. And I was patient with them, and I was loving with them. And I have that now with many of our kids. Matter of fact, today we had to deal with a situation, and we sat for an entire block with Mr. Trumbull and Miss Richardson with a group of young ladies, and we just sat and we listened. And out of that, now those young people, a couple of them want to be join the Board of Ed Code of Conduct Committee, Advisory Committee. Jason invited them in to be a part of the voices of young people that we listen to bring about the change. So they were heard, and one of the girls said, Mr. Trumbull, I don't know you, but I like you because you listen to me, and I've never had an administrator listen to me the way that you did. So it's things like that we got to do more for our young people, to give them that safe space so that they can express themselves and help our teachers build those strong relationships, authentic relationships. That's the key.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you so much for bringing your voice, for being here, for allocating some time to be with us today. And earlier, so you know, we showed a little video clip of the Stolen Joy Project for the young people at Village of Ithaca who are working on the larger series of pieces, the video clips, and just linking that to what you're saying right now, but the power of building trust with young people, you know, whether we look like them or not. The depth of that being so critical, creating spaces, opportunities for our young people to have a voice, to be able to share their voice, but to genuinely be heard, right? Like you all listen today with these young ladies. And so again, another thing too, still not underestimating the power of positive self-imagery, right? For us to see ourselves. Ms. Maynard, I don't know if you remember, but I remember you used to have some of the postcards from Harlem in our class in 2nd grade. And I remember I got to sit by Judith Jameson. It was a picture, she was dancing, she had her leg up in the air and all, you know, whatever. I was 7, that was a big deal. You just sit a certain kind of way when you're sitting by an image of Judith Jameson as a 2nd grader. So just wanted to, that was a comment that was made too about the critical importance of positive self-images, but how can our white teachers or Asian teachers of Black children also put energy into creating opportunities for their young Black children to see themselves, right? What are some of the communal relationships that teachers establish to create such spaces? So yes, building trust, spaces, voice, being heard, and seeing oneself. We are just about at the end of these 2 glorious hours together. And let me tell you, people have been texting, this just needs to be a series. Y'all just need to keep going. And someone's like, so-and-so wasn't invited too. There's some other educators. There's so many educators missing. Absolutely. That's why I said in the email, pass it. You know I'm missing people. But no shame, no guilt, none of that. We will do this again. I absolutely think a series is possible. We have so many incredible Black educators in Ithaca, Ella Awa, Dr. Manning. We miss Jakeem, our other elders and educators in the community, Mama Phoebe Brown, like the list goes on. And so this is not exclusive, this is critical, this is powerful, and such an honor to be on this panel with you very specifically. And we hope to do this again and invite some other folks. You will get a special gift from me. Look, Samantha's like, what? Look, the ABCs of Black History, your very own. This is actually really good. It's good. I'm excited. Lisa put me onto that at Buffalo Street Books. And then you'll also get, look at you leaning in, Samantha. Toni Morrison's 2 books, okay? Because in March, we want to have a gathering and invite folks to read her first book and her last one. Okay, so The Bluest Eye and God Help the Child. So these are just some little special gifts from Southside to each one of you. And Dr. E.B.
And just to let folks know, I'm currently working with Dr. Brown. I hope he doesn't mind us mention that we are working to bring Jason Reynolds to do some programming in the Ithaca City School District. Doc, I hope I can share that. We haven't made it public yet. We'll be giving more information out to folks. And that includes getting free copies to a number of community organizations as well as folks. So be on the lookout. We want as many people as possible to read this book when we bring this brother Jason Reynolds to be with us as well.
Thank you.
Hope that was okay, Doc.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. E.B. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm very excited about that. Mr. Amos, do you want to say some closing words to honor this moment? It's 5:59.
Be careful.
Yes.
Six.
Yes, I will. I just want to say thank you, and to everyone that I can't see that's listening in the audiences out there, thank you for participating, listening, the feedback, and to all our distinguished guests, to Dr. Sean Eversley Braswell, to Mr. Corey Mitchell, who I have not met personally yet, but that's going to happen, to Dr. Lavelle Brown, to Mrs. Little, Mrs. Lee, to Mrs. LaFave, Mrs. Maynard, Dr. Nia, the Mrs. Shelley Nunn, and of course, Uncle Fee Nunn, Uncle, just everybody. You know, I just want to say thank you. We will have to do this again because there's so much, we got so much work to do. And just a question that had jumped through: what would it take for Black lives to really matter? I mean, this is it, and we're talking about it. And I thank you all for being with us, you know, from the bottom of our heart. You know, we thank you.
Yes.
And until next time, I won't say bye. I will say till next time.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time this evening.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Color purple.
Thanks so much. And thanks folks out there for watching, checking us out as well. We honor you, all the teachers, educators, parents, and young people out there listening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.